Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Fear the Talking Heads. I'm Barb, and I have Joanna with me again, another co-host of Scarefest TV. Thank you, Joanna, for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me, especially when it's my favorite topic in franchise.
Yes, we are going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. This is another one of those movies that has a bit of a divide with the fans. I feel like you either really enjoyed it and appreciated it for a different spin on what the first one offered, or you went into it and decided this is just not for me and I hate it. So, and I think all franchises tend to have one or more installment that people just don't really gravitate to, like the maybe the Thorn trilogy in uh Halloween, the Halloween franchise. Some people really love that more than all the other ones, and some people are like, why did they do this? So, in your opinion, with Freddy's Revenge, what did you like and dislike about this movie?
I absolutely love it. It is probably my favorite in the franchise for me. It's just my favorite to watch. I can just watch it over and over. I feel like in this one, I appreciate, Freddie at different stages. And I feel like in this one, this was before Freddie really started with those famous one-liners that we all love and just make us laugh while he's murdering kids. And I feel like he also looked the most sinister in this one. Like to me, his appearance, his makeup, the effects were made him look way scarier. So those I love those elements, definitely. Um Dislike, it's not, I don't really dislike this, but I know a lot of the fans are just, they hate that it didn't follow the formula. That, Freddy can get you when you're not sleeping, and he pretty much, it's almost like a demon that possesses this guy. So, I guess a lot of people just didn't connect to it that way, and they feel that Dream Warriors is the true sequel.
Oh, okay, and I love Dream Warriors. I think that it has some really cool elements as far as taking ownership in your dreams, which you can actually do. That's a thing. You can create a situation in your sleep life where you can take control of and navigate your dreams. That's a thing. You do that?
Yep, I can.
Okay.
Actually, that's why I love Freddie, because he's the star of my childhood nightmares. And the best I could do in my dreams, like, I guess, is it called lucid dreaming, where you can control, you're dreaming and you're in control.
Yes.
As a little kid, I would make myself be friends with him so he wouldn't kill me. And it
No
and it
way.
worked. And it
That's
totally worked.
amazing. And I always thought that you couldn't really do that until you're an adult, but the fact that you could do it as a kid, that you had that ability, that's pretty rad. I mean, honestly.
I love it. That was how I was just able to navigate that. And now it's like I have this special appreciation for him because of that.
Some people have to read dream books in order to learn how to do that, Joanna.
And I come from a line of mystics. We're all freaks in my family. We are.
That's amazing. Well, I will say this movie, I like that we're talking about it because there's a contrast here because this was probably one of my least favorites and it's your favorite, which I think allows us to really have good, meaty conversation about it then. And that's always a good thing. Whereas some people will just maybe think like, oh, I can't believe you don't like this movie that I love. And it's like, but that creates such a good dialogue between people, I think.
And at least we're doing it this way. So if it gets
Yes.
really heated, it's not like we'll be like, let's take this outside.
Cash you outside.
Right.
Well, I will say so something I did like about it as far as like positives and negatives, uh the the special effects that they used in Grady's room, and now we're going to start getting into spoilers. So if anybody's listening to this and has not watched it, I highly recommend go watch that first and then come back. But the second that he had to go into Grady's room and basically say like, help me, I'm having issues, help me with this. And then, the part where Freddy's exiting, basically shedding that skin and coming out of Jessie, the main character. I thought they did really, really well with the special effects. It didn't look too cheesy, which it very well could have because it was the 80s.
Right.
And so they obviously had the budget there. And when I was looking up information on this, I even saw that they created a fake head for Jesse so that when he opened his mouth and and Freddy's looking through the
Yeah, I
little
was gonna say I
eyeball.
love seeing his eyeball in there. That's amazing.
So some of the effects were just so fun. If I did decide that, oh, I want to go back and watch something, I could easily go on YouTube and just catch little clips of it. So when I say this is not one that I'll go back and rewatch, I would probably still want to go back and rewatch clips from time to time just because they're so awesome. A pool party scene, I like and dislike. I'm conflicted on this, and here's why. I love the "You're all my children now."
You are all my children now.
I love that line. It's become iconic, as you know.
Of
And
course.
the part that I struggle with is that he has come out of the dream world. And that I am in that camp of, I think he's more scary when he can get you while you're sleeping. Because there's so many other boogeymen that can get you in your waking life, but he makes it to where you fear falling asleep at night. And everyone needs to sleep in order to live. Like you just have to. So the fact that it took some, and that's part of why Wes Craven didn't want to direct this, as he said it's, between the demonized parakeet and the like he didn't want to go into it with these weird elements. And the fact that he figured Freddy was not going to be as scary in the waking world as he would be in the dream world. So he was like, no, I kind of wash my hands of this, which was interesting to find out because I always wondered why didn't he step in the second one? But yeah, so that was one of my negatives, I guess you could say, is that while they were trying to come up with something different, because the director didn't like the first one. I don't know if you came across that information, but he didn't
I
care
did
for the
not.
first one.
Oh,
So
okay.
he didn't feel like he had to follow uh, that protocol of him killing people in the dreams. He didn't feel like he had to follow along with that template at all. So he just went in a completely different direction. I mean, I guess I can respect that, that he tried something different. It worked for
Right.
some and it didn't work for others. And the ending part too, with giving that message of love conquers all. Because she loved him, he was able to, fight off Freddy. I was like, really? So
Yeah.
I was like,
Okay, I thought we were going
no.
to talk about the ending, how they always do or not always, I guess most of them, there's always that, fun little last kill, where the arm
Oh,
just shoots out of the.
no, that was great too, though. I guess I mean like the fake ending.
I know, I see what you
the
mean.
the faux ending. The part where you figure it's going to end there, but then it goes to the school bus. No, but so with that, making Freddy seem so weak, I think I didn't like that for the same reason
Okay.
that people didn't like Halloween Ends. You know,
Okay.
because it showed Michael as being weak in Halloween Ends. So I think that you don't want to see a boogeyman cowering in the corner. You don't ever want to see that because they're the boogeyman. They're like the ultimate scare. So I guess that's where I was, with the ending of this. And you didn't have a problem with it. You just took it for face value, right?
Yeah, I did.
Hmm.
I did. You know, I guess, now I think about it, usually the end is not, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't stick out in my mind too much, where she'll kisses him and then it's like Jessie comes back out, when Freddy's shell's taken off. And, yeah, I'm like, that's probably not, I probably ignore the ending a little bit now that, we're talking about it, but I was like, it's an ending.
Although I will say, like you said with the bus at the end, if anyone was to the point of, oh, I don't like this faux ending, and it switches to the bus, I guess it strengthens it a little bit more because, like you said, with the arm coming through at the end, it's like, oh no, he's not really gone. He's still there. Which
Yeah.
I didn't know. Now, did you know this? A little bit of trivia that at the end of the very first OG Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven wanted it to end without making it look like everything was a dream. I think Bob Shea, the producer, is who stepped in and said, no, no, no. I want it to have an open ending to where we can add on if we wanted to do a franchise. So there was a little bit of a disagreement there because Wes Craven was like, I don't know if I like that idea, with the pulling away in the car, and which I think some of it was cheesy. We've talked about this before, pulling the
Yeah.
mom through the
Like some
window.
mannequin.
All of a sudden
Yeah.
she became like this thin.
Like, whoa.
Let's talk about what Joanna wants to talk about, which
Yes.
is over the years, it has been stated that there's some elements of homoeroticism in the movie. And so, Joanna, do you want to talk about the scenes that were obvious to you as an adult watching this?
Okay. I was the same as you as a kid. Yeah, or like when Jessie goes into the S&M bar as a kid, I thought that was a biker bar. And I was like, oh wow, these are a bunch of rough, scary people. They're probably in gangs and then his PE coach is, oh, he's one of these, hard ass guys and then yeah, his coach catches or the PE teacher catches him in there and makes him go back to the school and run laps. And then he's in the equipment room getting jump ropes. As a kid, I was just like, oh, I guess he's going to just whip him for being bad. And now I'm like, oh, he was going to like tie him up and do something really messed up to him. Like, oh, and watching it again as an adult, I'm like, this is a bar for people with like alternative sexualities. Oh,
Definitely. Definitely.
yes.
But you know what? I will say this. I'm so naive sometimes because I didn't realize that there was anything to pick up on until you said, "Hey, we could talk about this when we talk about Freddy's Revenge." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yep.
So then I went to look it up and I'm like, "Oh." So then watching it with kind of a fresh set of eyes and seeing some of that, just like one of the things too was when he's making out with his female co-star and
Mm-hmm.
his tongue turns gray, that I guess that was supposed to be almost like he's closeted gay and he is not liking making out with a girl. That's what it was supposed to kind of be a subtlety of. And then he's running to his friend's house and his friend says, "So you have this girl in the cabana,"
And you want to sleep with me.
which is not so subtle,
Exactly.
I guess, when you think about it.
Exactly. Yes. And Freddie trying to come out of him, to me, that was almost like a metaphor for his closeted gayness,
Repressed
wanting to come out and
sexuality.
be like, this is
Yeah.
who you're meant to be, embrace it, you
Yes.
know? And then maybe that's why I always ignored the ending because then it was like, well, did he decide to closet back up? Because, Freddie left him, or I don't know, or did he release it? And who knows what happened?
Oh yeah. I mean, I do like when there's movies that you can kind of pick it apart and there was even like a game in the room in the closet or something that was called Probe. There was a sign on his door that said either like no chicks allowed or no girls allowed.
Yeah.
So there were things that I actually, as a viewer, can now appreciate that they tried to put these little things there, and the fact that it's a movie that in the LGBTQ community is widely known as, hey, this is kind of a movie for us. But in the end, I mean, this is just one more movie to add to a collection out there that will get people talking, whether it's about the gay elements or it's about the fact that uh, the director deviated so much away from that original template for Freddy Krueger, right?
Right.
So anyone who has listened this far and didn't care that there were spoilers, what would you tell them going into the movie? Would you recommend that they watch it in addition to the first one or just as a standalone by itself?
Definitely, I would recommend it as a standalone. And I would probably be like, there's some kind of subtleties, like you mentioned, that, pay attention to. And I think it gives it a little bit more, depth. It's not just a crazy horror movie. It's also, like a secret nod to maybe, something that people were going through during that time period that they couldn't be very open about. But it's like, hey, we see you. So I always kind of
Absolutely.
appreciate that as well about it.
That's nice too. Talking with you about it, it kind of makes me appreciate it just a little bit more for what they were trying to do with it. Oh, and one last thing I did want to mention before we wrap up is did you know that Freddie or Robert Englund wasn't initially asked back for the second one? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. New Line wanted to cheap out and go with a stuntman because they thought, well, just like all the other boogeymen out there, you just throw a mask on him, right? It could just be anyone. So they didn't want to give Robert Englund boost in pay because he, rightly so, could expect a higher paycheck since he had already done the first one. We're now going into the second one. So he says, like, okay, no deal, basically. So they had this stuntman for a couple of weeks, and they said that he didn't have the swagger that Robert Englund had. Robert Englund kind of had this way that he walked,
Mm-hmm.
and this other guy kind of did more of this Frankenstein's monster kind of just slow. And
Oh,
they said,
Lord.
"Listen, you need to pay that man what he's asking for because we're not gonna be able to make this movie otherwise." So isn't
Yep.
that cool?
That's very cool. And I'm glad they made the right decision.
Yes, me too. Me too. And I mean, he owned that franchise. He really did. So we're lucky to have him.
Very much. I agree.
So, how would you rate this movie? You already know that I've given it 3
I forget how out of how many stars?
out of 5. I usually do out of 5
Out of
stars.
5. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, let's see. I want to be safe and say 4.5, but I really can't think of anything that,
That you didn't really like.
yeah, I mean, I guess I would say 4.5 because the
Okay.
ending where, that you're right, the little love scene where, and then it's like, okay, is Jessie gone back to being closeted? Kind of not really sure what happened there. So that, might have been a little disappointment for me. But
Okay.
besides that, I love the entire movie.
I love that it's a 4.5 star for you. That's great.
I love
Yeah,
it so
the
much.
the ending is open for interpretation.
Yes.
I like that. It gives the viewer a chance to go, wow, so what did this really mean then? And so you could almost have like a book club, but movie club. Like, what did it mean to
You're
you?
like,
Well, this is what it meant to me.
exactly.
So it
Right.
creates some really good dialogue. So thank you so much for joining me again. I love talking about these movies with you. It's especially when it's one that you care about so much because I could hear your passion talking about it in the beginning too.
Yes,
So,
very much. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on and talking about my favorite topic. That's awesome. I thank you so much.
absolutely. All right. Well, Joanna, you have a great rest of your day. Viewers, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.